Greetings, colleagues. Welcome back to the LARC video series. I'm Dr. Barbara McKinney, and I will be your guide through this LARC Quality Improvement Collaborative. Today, we continue the define phase, where we share tools that assist us to fully understand the problem and get the project started off well. Today, we're asking the question, what does the customer want? And we'll answer that with a tool called the voice of the customer. Success will not be achieved unless you and your team have satisfied the desires of your customer. That's a key metric of a successful project. Now let's give you a textbook definition of the voice of the customer. The voice of the customer is an in-depth process using both qualitative and quantitative research to systematically listen to the customers, using the information to take action and monitor performance over time. Let's break that down a little bit. The voice of the customer is actually about listening to your customer. This is the essential component of this tool, the voice of the customer. I hope you picked that up in the definition, to systematically listen to the customers. Another part of the definition was using both qualitative and quantitative research. Now, quantitative research gives us numbers. I'm going to share with you an example from our previous LARC implementation, where we asked the question, how helpful were the IHI courses? And we received a quantitative response. 90% of the people said very helpful, and 10% of the people said somewhat helpful. But we also looked at qualitative responses. Those are the responses that add a richness into your understanding of the voice of the customer. And I've highlighted one here. As a support mentor, this is the second one in the list, clinic staff look up to you. The courses have enhanced my QI leadership and mentor skills. So don't forget number or quantitative research, but also qualitative research into what your customer's feedback is. Now, who is my customer? And I'd like to encourage you to think about the process. I think you've heard me say that before. Think about the process and who actually provides inputs to you and to whom do you provide outputs. Here's a caveat. In healthcare, all of us are working for the patient, but our actual customer may not be the patient. Think about an example of a laboratory, a testing laboratory. In the example of a testing laboratory, think about who provides samples and who you send results to. As a testing laboratory, you may receive samples from a clinic or a laboratory hub. And you might want to know about that process of getting samples transferred in. So the customer is your clinic or laboratory hub. And think about the process of where you send your results to, back to a clinic or perhaps a laboratory hub. And you might want to query them about that process of getting results back, say in a timely fashion. So it's important to think about your customer in terms of your process. And if you haven't viewed the process mapping videos in this define section, please scroll on over and view them now. That's a crucial component to defining and understanding your problem. Now, how will you gain feedback? And the workbook actually provides some very important guidance in this. It says to select the most appropriate method for the situation. And it provides you with some options. Perhaps you could do a focus group or interview face to face or on the phone. Perhaps you could observe the implementation actually at the point of use, or you could send out a survey questionnaire. It could be paper-based or it could be electronic. So think of many options that you would be able to use to gain feedback. And here's one more QI tip. When you are designing, say, a survey or a questionnaire, conduct a small pilot before creating the final tool. Just test it with a couple of people. Assure that the questions are clear and unambiguous. Assure that the tool is collecting the needed information. You're always trying to match the voice of the customer questions to measure the effectiveness of interventions down the road. So then next, we talk about analyzing the data through the voice of customer activity. And I'll present you again with another example from a voice of customer survey that we did on a previous LARC implementation. We asked to rate the satisfaction with the overall quality of the in-person sessions. And here are responses, and here's how we were able to analyze those responses. First, we looked at all the respondents, and we were able to analyze their responses by putting it into a graphical form. And here we could see that the majority, almost 50% said excellent, and around 40% said good, and less than 10% said fair, and about 5% said they did not attend the sessions. Now, we could look at it that way, or we could actually look at the percentages. 48% said excellent, 40% said good. We could combine those two and say about 88% of the participants were satisfied with the in-person sessions. We're analyzing and understanding that data that we have obtained. And then here's another option. We could break out the answers according to who's providing the answers. Here we broke out the responses from the coaches to see if there's any difference. Now, really, it looks pretty much the same, but we're able to focus down on a smaller subset of the respondents. Just some examples to help you think about how to analyze your data that you'll obtain through the voice of customer activity. Now, remember that definition. It said an in-depth process using qualitative and quantitative research. We've discussed that. We've discussed listening to the customers. Let's talk about the last two pieces of this, taking action and monitoring performance over time. Taking action. This is likely the most important component of the voice of customer activity. Once you listen to your customer, you need to take action and address the concerns. And make sure that you have alignment within your project. The voice of customer needs to align closely with the overall project goals and aims. It's typically a better idea not to ask about things that you cannot or will not address in this particular project, because you're going to take action and then you're going to monitor over time. We're coming to that next. You're going to monitor over time and you're going to want to show that you've improved the situation by showing improved scores in the follow-up survey. So it's really a great idea to ask about things that you will actually act on and can show improvement. The next piece of the definition was monitoring over time. And again, I'll share with you an example, this time from my work at the Mayo Clinic, where we made some changes in a clinic process. And we asked the staff how they perceived the changes that had been made. Yes, there's another option of who your customer might be. Your customer might be the staff in the clinic to see if the changes are improving their workflow, their efficiency, and their pebble in their shoe, their problem. So here we improved our staff satisfaction by 24%. And you'll see the columns here. There's the old score, the new score in response to each of the questions. There's the percentage of change. There's even a p-value and whether it was improved or not improved. If you notice the very last line, you see an overall score, 3.2 out of 5, the old score, and the new score, 3.97 out of 5. And the percentage change was 24%. So we are able to look at the before and after, and that's something very crucial that you'll want to do in your project, to look at the satisfaction of your customer in advance and afterward. Now, allow me one quick detour. There's a point here that I'd also like to make. I want you to look at this chart. This is a perfectly good chart. There's the old score and the new score, and everything is clearly delineated in this chart. But could I make this data more visible? What if I displayed this data in a graphical format? And in this example, we've chosen a bar graph to show the responses before in the blue bars and after in the orange bars for each of the typical questions that we had asked about. So here we're able to see that the triage process and the scheduling process showed significant improvement between before and after. So we're monitoring over time, but we're also showing it in a graphical display, which makes it much easier to see. Okay, so back to the addressing customer concerns and connecting and linking all the tools and methodologies throughout the project. So let me give you an example from a previous LARC implementation. Here's the problem statement. Clients with high viral load are not attending EAC. That's advanced adherence counseling. They're not attending that timely within 30 days. Now, let's think about some linkages. Given the problem statement, what do you want to ask in the voice of customer survey? And this is a very important linkage. We want everything to have internal coherence. So the problem statement needs to link with the voice of customer survey. So have you thought about it? Given that problem statement, what would you really like to ask in the voice of customer survey? Well, if you have the same answer I did, I would really like to know why the clients aren't returning to the clinics for their EAC appointments. I'd like to understand what the barriers are. And many times, teams miss this very important connection when they use this tool. They survey clients and they ask about a lot of things. Perhaps they ask about signage in the clinic. But once again, if you're not going to address the signage in the clinic, it's better to ask that in a different format or at a different time when you're going to actually address that. Definitely focus on internal coherence and connections within the project. So here's what this team did. They designed a voice of customer survey or questionnaire. They put it in the local language. They identified their customer, its clients on ART, And they describe their collection process, how many patients they sampled, and over time, and how the sampling was done. And then the very key part of Voice of Customer is pulling together what you've learned and determining how you're going to apply that to your intervention. Again, internal coherence and consistent. So let's see what this team learned. They asked, how are our services? They wanted to know about satisfaction overall. They asked, which service point is taking too long? And what department would you like for us to improve? So linking all that together, here's what this team learned. The patients were not coming to the clinic for appointments because they felt like the time spent in the clinic was too long. And then they also identified pharmacy as the service needing most improvement. So there you have it. They've distilled this information that they learned. And now there are more linkages for sure. We're going to link what we've learned and we're going to put it right into our fishbone as we analyze the causes of our problem. And then we'll certainly want to link that with our interventions and actually address these concerns. And then repeat the Voice of Customer survey to see how we did. So I'll leave you with this last thought as you're thinking about Voice of the Customer. Take action. A very important component of the Voice of Customer survey, taking action and addressing the concerns. And we will definitely get to that in the improve phase. So I want to thank you for joining me as we've explored the tools in the define phase of your quality improvement project. I look forward to seeing you back for our next session in the LARC video series. Thank you so much and have a great day.